I was chatting with my friend earlier, talking about people being late for meetings. And it was interesting because as I tried to explain my reasons and also Gavin, who will be joining us here in a bit's reasons, we kept coming up with different ones, but they were all a lack of time or maybe overcommitment or potential boredom might be coming into play with Gavin's case. But what would you do if you had more time? How could you solve some of those mundane tasks that take up your day? Join us to find out.
Dom Kirby, Matt Lee. The game.
What's up? Welcome to the game. Happy Wednesday. We're going to be talking AI. There's not much else to it, but we're going to be talking specifically AI agents, not to be conflated with LLMs. It's a very different thing. We're going to talk about AI agents here in a minute with Gavin Klondike. But before we get into it, don't forget to like and share and subscribe and all that fun stuff. And if you'd like to comment and interact with us, the best place to do that is youtube.com/PaxSateCloud, because our producers can see that and they can put it right up on the screen so that we can show off your work to the world. Don't forget to sign up for PaxSate Beyond. We also have a security boot camp coming up in April in Chicago that you should definitely come to, because I keep hearing about ransomware payloads or identity attacks or something. I don't know. It's definitely something you should check out. I think we even threw out the term CTF. But anyways, let's get into it.
Great, Dom. Oh, man. Gavin, welcome back to the show. You are such a star. I don't even need to introduce this, bro. Just run with it. Let's just teach people about agents and agentic capabilities.
Yeah, let's talk about AI agents. First off, though, I want to say I'm mad at you guys because I told you last time I can talk about this for 3 hours and you only gave me 30 minutes. So we're going to speed run this. All right.
There was a 3 in there somewhere, I think.
Yeah, we just put the colon in the wrong spot.
Yeah.
I think our LLM hallucinated the colon into the wrong spot is what happened.
Oh, that could do it. Yeah, you got to use the new DeepSeek R1. A lot of buzz in the news about that one.
But thanks, bud.
Let's hop into
thanks.
Let's hop into the
Gavin.
presentation. All right, so I put some slides together. AI agents is kind of the new hotness right now. It's been around for a little bit, but it's really picking up steam, right? When ChatGPT first bust onto the scene, everybody's like, oh, look how cool this chatbot is. And then some really smart people had the idea of, hey, what if we just start giving it access to code and functions and other things? What does that look like? So the new ecosystem kind of looks like this, where we're using agents. So agents are essentially the large language model. It doesn't really matter what model you're using, if you're using GPT-4 or if you're using Anthropic Claude or even some of the reasoning agents like DeepSeek R1. But the agent is kind of the LLM in the crispy center there. You give it access to planning tasks. And so now you take that, what's called one-shot prompting, or here, I want you to write me a report on something, and then it does that and it returns an output. You can actually cause it to do some planning and reflection. It can even do what's called chain of thought reasoning, which gets more efficient answers. You can add some memory to it, so short-term and long-term memory. So you can add documents. So if you upload, say, your HR employee manual, you can start asking it questions and it can pull directly from that document by essentially doing a really fancy version of Control F find. And then you can give it access to code functions. So we're going to take a look at all of these examples and practical examples that I use on a regular basis. So one of the common questions that people ask is like, well, hey, why do we even really need AI agents? And the reason is because of multi-hop questions. So these are going to be questions that don't have a direct answer, but you have to kind of chain answers together. And then as you do that, it's able to perform those functions autonomously. So a really good example is what currency is used where Bill Gates died, right? So first it has to figure out, okay, Billy Giles. Where did Billy Giles die? And then that was in London, that was in the UK. Okay, what currency does the UK use? And that's going to be in pound sterling. You can have multiple questions point to a single question that you then need an answer to. You can have multiple chains of questions. There's so many different possibilities, and this is kind of where AI agents really take advantage of things, where you can start chaining things together. Now, there's a few different theories on AI agents. I would say that from the AI space, they're still trying to solve some situations or some ideas that the software development space has already solved. So I like to use old software development patterns that have already been vetted, have already been solved. So one of the common ones are what are called ETL pipelines, or extract, transform, and load. Basically, what that means is you start with gathering a bunch of information from many different sources. You turn that into something that's usable, and then you load that into the next function. So to generalize it a little bit more, and we'll see an example of what this looks like, you start with your input, where you're collecting all of your inputs from, process that information, and then you put it out as an output. There's some other ideas, some other methodologies. This one, if you've ever heard of, or if you just Google AI agents, probably a little bit more common. This is going to be AutoGPT and Crew AI. There's a few other frameworks, but these are really popular frameworks for building what are called agentic workflows. So generally, you have an input that's generally coming from a user. It goes to a manager agent, and then that manager agent decides how many or what kinds of agents, which are smaller versions of LLMs, it needs to spawn to complete a task. So as Andrew Ng talks about, you start with a complex task and you break it down into simpler tasks that are easy to complete. And that's where you get LLMs being able to do more than just a chatbot. So before I move on, Matt, Dom, do you guys have any comments on that? Have you experienced any of these before?
I think what you're really getting towards is, if you were just asking an LLM to perform a task, the output might be variable and not able to be functionally valuable for you. However, whichever method you're using, whether you're using combinations of these extract, transform, right, or if you're looking at this kind of manager and crew that we're working for us type model, you're having something break it into the smaller components so that those components can be worked on in conjunction, in sequence, in multiple sequences, and in things to come up with a predictable output and also more efficient. That also allows you to assign various personas to the different functions. That also allows you to assign various things that it's preloaded with and pre-constructed with, and have some predictable flows through that. So I haven't had a lot of interaction. I've done a couple of these myself. I'm not a Gavin Klondike, but I have automated my new YouTube streams to have them be digested, brought out of a transcript into a better and more usable transcript, and then have ChatGPT rewrite me chapter endings for it and rewrite that back in a flow, right? And so that's much more of a linear flow in which we were describing, and not so much agentically managed in this way to have, the outputs you're talking about. But hopefully I've captured what you said and then put my old Matt weird words on it to spin it, I suppose.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. You take the complex task, you break it down into simpler tasks. A really common example, and this was one of the first AI agent demos that people did, is they used AI agents to simulate an entire software development team. So they had one agent act as the CEO, they had another one act as a product manager, they had another one act as the lead developer, they had a QA developer to check the code that the lead developer was making. And so it just automatically tied all of them together. And so you have all those different roles and responsibilities separated out into the individual agents.
I bet it's fun to throw popcorn or eat popcorn and watch them get into arguments, though, every now and again,
Yeah,
right?
100%.
That type of model.
Yeah, it is actually.
I've seen QA send code back.
Yeah, this is wrong. No, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not. My job.
And then it answers, the president of Zimbabwe was, never mind, sorry. Hallucination.
Starts hallucinating, starts coming up with all sorts of random stuff. Yeah. As a security consultant, my job is basically to tell, developers with 10 plus years of experience that they're coding wrong. And then sometimes they'll come back to me and say, no, it's correct. And I was like, well, I have access to your whole database. So something went wrong.
So
let's work together on this.
Yeah. Data suggests otherwise. Yeah. So how are you using these in your day-to-day life? Give me an example that's more kinesthetic. One of the complaints you made before the show is reading these articles that talk about this at a theoretical level, but never really get very tactical and demonstrative. So hopefully you're going to change that for people a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So To get into that, I kind of want to get people a little familiar with some of the terms that I'm going to be using, right?
Sure.
So that was the ETL pipeline that I was talking about, the extract, transform, and load. Registry pattern, these are really fancier terms, or it just has a memory or a short-term memory. So that means that agent A can talk to agent D without having to go through B and C. So it stores information in places. Prompt chaining means that you start with one prompt, then it goes to another one, then it goes to another one. It's very similar to having a conversation. We've kind of pre-laid the whole conversation out as part of the workflow. Intelligent document processing, I'm not going to go into. And then human in the loop is very similar to prompt chaining, but it's more chatting with these AI agents that have additional functionality. So let's take a quick look at some examples that I have. This is N8N.
And what platform are you using? Yep, go ahead. That's exactly where you're heading. Go.
Yep. So N8N, I really appreciate because it's a graphical user interface. It's very similar to make.com and Zapier. I use N8N instead of more of the Python programming because it allows me to rapidly prototype. It also lets me visually represent what the agents are doing and how they're operating without having to dig into like 10 files of Python code to try and troubleshoot the one thing that's going wrong. So I really like N8N. And if you're interested in getting started in AI agents, I highly recommend starting here. Really good example to show what like a basic chat GPT process looks like. N8N, it's kind of like Legos, where you start at one spot and then you add nodes until you get to the final output. So in this case, we have a start node. So this is going to be your chat. We have an AI agent node. And in here, we have things that should be familiar if you've ever used large language models before, right? So we have a human message. Sometimes you can add a system message. I don't have one in this example. And then you have different connectors kind of at the end. So this is the OpenAI chat model. So I'm going to be using ChatGPT or GPT-4 for this example. And then Windows buffer memory that holds on to just 5 conversations at a time. So this is the short-term memory that I was talking about in the diagram that I showed earlier. So that's kind of how all of this ties together. And now with the nodes, we can build it out even more. And that's where we have this kind of monstrosity. So we start with the planner agent. And if I look at this, the system message is, hey, you're a planner agent. You're working, and the first part is task automation. You have a couple other agents that you're going to be passing information off to. So as you develop your plan, you need to think about this. So first, planner agent, that's going to be you. Second is going to go to a researcher. Researcher has access to tools and a Google search. And then the third agent is going to be a report writer who's going to take the research, the plan, and the user query and write a report that will be useful to the user. So this takes a more complex idea and splits it out into the smaller pieces. We can see the same thing with the chat model. So this is the OpenAI chat model. I'm just using GPT-4o, or sorry, GPT-4. I was using a preview model just for testing earlier. The Windows buffer memory, so we can have multiple conversations if we so choose. And then a JSON output formatter so that it formats the output of this agent to be the input of the next agent in a way that I specify. And I find JSON to be very useful. So it's the same thing. It goes to a researcher agent. And so we have the user query. The user query is going to have, here's what the user is asking for. Here's the plan from the planner agent. And then here's the suggested search terms that also come from the planner agent. So this is how we chain things together in a little bit more of a complex way. So we can go ahead and ask a question. What's a question that I should ask? Something that'll reach out to the internet.
I don't know, like, where does Cyber Matt Lee live? Might be a fun one. Or what else? Let's see. Where's Cyber Matt Lee live? Let's see if this thing knows where I live.
Yeah, let's see if it can do some OSINT research for us. So I go ahead and
some
kick
things
off
to
the
cover.
chat. We can.
Yeah, I was going to say some things to cover while you're working on this. I don't know if y'all noticed watching at home, it allows you to put context of that next receiving entity, right? You were able to say, hey, your job is this, and here's the way you should think. Hey, your job is this, and here's the way you should think, right? So that's pretty neat. Due to repeated errors from the search service. Oh, that Matt Lee. Try again.
And Google.
Yeah, let's just try it again. It's got some it's got some
Nice.
buffer memory, so it knows what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And law of
exactly.
large numbers, or law of live demos is also, we did
Yeah.
just do this before the show, so to make sure it didn't know where I lived. I digress. Anyways,
I always go back
yeah, there we
to
go.
yeah, it's the live demos that cause the problem.
Yeah, for
But we
sure.
can still see like what's actually happening internally here. So we have the planner agent, and it creates a plan. So it has step 1, look for Cybermat Lee. Step 2, analyze the information. Step 3, if there's a specific location, verify the credibility of the source. So it created a plan, and it created a search term, Cybermat Lee, and then it passes that over to the researcher agent, which, if I pop this out, you can see kind of here on the right how it takes my user query, it takes the
Yeah.
plan, and it
Yeah.
takes the search term, and it plugs that into the Google API that I'm using.
So far, it's right on the
So
nose
if
of the methodology so that it's come up with. Oh, here's where the error was. Okay.
yeah, this is where the error was. So there's something with the Google API. That's fine. The other demos will work differently.
Gotcha.
But then
Cool.
it'll take that information, it'll pass it over to a reporter agent.
And just to let
We can
everybody
take
know what
this.
it reported on earlier was Cybermat Lee clearly lives in Riverton, Utah, according to his LinkedIn profile, and I can verify it. Here's your link, right? And that kind of information. And I think for the demonstrative purposes, that's what it should find. So it was good. We're not asking it to go to
Yeah.
sources like dark web or any other things.
We can do something a little bit more on me. So who is Gavin Klondike? So this is the same kind of agent, but now I've collapsed it all into one LLM. So it has a couple different patterns inside of it, and it does the same process. It creates a plan, it does the research, so it has access to those tools, and then it writes a report for me. So as you can see here, I asked it, who is Gavin Klondike? That's me. So it has access to a Google tool. It also has access to read articles and scrape the internet for things. So here it just created essentially an entire dossier on myself. Now, what I use these agents for are research. I do a lot of research as part of my job, as part of my opportunities as a independent security researcher. And so this 10x's my ability to do those kinds of queries. So I really appreciate these types of workflows, and it speeds up a lot of my time. So I don't have to be the one searching. I have a little research intern do the searching for me, and then I just get the results and the juicy information that I need. I can still go in and find where it was getting that information, right? So I have the search parameters. I have titles of articles. It even gives me access to the article links inside of here. I don't think that it's showing the links because of the way that I configured this one, but it'll actually show the links to the articles themselves. So I can go and cite my own sources and verify that the LLM is telling me exactly what I need to know. And it's factually accurate, right? It's not hallucinating because it's pulling directly from the internet. So this I use probably 9 times out of 10 for any sort of research that I need to do and learning new things.
What is it? It's not limited to just who is, right? You can do all kinds of questions from that. You've just structured it of how to break it apart into its researchable components, ultimately, is what you've instructed.
Exactly. I can ask it to write me a finding template for like a CSRF finding if I'm doing some sort of pen test report. I can ask for cybersecurity questions or read framework documentation, right? Documentation is really boring to read, so I can just have it read it for me and tell me the stuff that I need to know. So all sorts of things. You have access to Google and you have access to a web scraper, and it'll just do the thing for you, which is fantastic.
Sure.
Now, something that you mentioned earlier, I'm really happy about was YouTube. So this is another pattern that I use as part of my research, right? Not everything's written. A lot of stuff is video. I actually like a lot of YouTube videos. I watch my YouTube videos on like 1.5x speed. But whenever a large conference like DEF CON releases all of their videos, it's way too much information to parse. And I need to know if these certain talks are talks that I would be interested in. So I built a pipeline here. And what this does is I can ask it questions about a particular YouTube video. I can paste in a YouTube link, and then it'll go ahead, it will download the transcript, it'll read the transcript, and then it'll write a whole report for me, and I can ask questions about that report. So now I'm essentially having a conversation with a YouTube video to see if it's worth my time. Now, sometimes this can take a little longer depending on YouTube's API and how nice it wants to be in giving you that full transcript. So I went ahead and pre-ran it. The video in question is actually my first appearance here, right? How to pen test like a web hacker.
Nice.
So I asked it, hey, watch this video and give me some practical steps that I should learn from it, and then give me on a scale of 1 to 10 how much this video is worth my time. Please draft this report in Markdown. Then I gave it the YouTube link. And so here
How
we see
good did it score you? I'm curious.
That's at the bottom. I haven't seen it yet, so we'll see.
Oh, this is going to be good. This will be a good reveal.
Yeah.
That
So
Matt
here
Lee
it
guy would
highlights
shut up and be a 10.
Cybersecurity shenanigans are crucial to be
I saw
aware
that right
of.
away. The shenanigans. That's a Dom term.
That's the intro. Yep. It gives us ideas. It gives us insights. Quotes.
Oh, it does quotes
so
too.
We can quote mine you.
Yeah.
That's
some
cool.
habits, nice little facts, references. Let's go all the way down to the bottom. I don't think it gave me on a scale of 1 to 10.
Oh man.
One sentence
Didn't
takeaway.
listen.
This is nice. Effective penetration testing requires a systemic approach,
agreed.
balancing technical skills with strategic thinking and continuous adaptation. And then some nice recommendations at the end. So I don't have to watch an hour-long video of me talking.
Yeah. Oh, look at your input though. Extract 20 of the 50 most. That's that's some creative prompting. That's very cool.
Yeah. This
How much massaging
actually,
did this take, Gavin, to get this one working the way you wanted it to work? Because that's what I want the users to take home here, is that this is a bit of a labor of love, I would wager.
Right. Yeah, so this is actually what a prompt should look like. Notice how large this is. Now, for this specific one, I kind of cheated. I actually used Daniel Miessler's Fabric. He has a large repositories of really solid prompts that you can use for LLMs and AI agents. Highly recommend it. So this is his extract wisdom prompt. If you wanted to go through and kind of copy this. So this one, it's crowdsourced. That took people a lot longer to make. Some of the prompts that I make are more targeted. I really like learnprompting.org to learn different methods for prompt engineering. And so it'll tell you things like chain of thought reasoning, few shot patterns, role prompting, and others, so that you become a prompting god, basically.
You heard it here first, folks.
Prompting god.
Become a prompting god.
That's my new hashtag prompting god.
We only have a little bit of time left, but I want to show, because earlier we were talking about building a AI agent that can actually go out and do OSINT research on people. So that's what does OSINT stand for? I just keep using the acronym. It's
Open source intelligence.
Open source intelligence. Yeah, there we go.
Yep.
So in line with the multi-hop questions that I presented earlier, we're going to do one that's a little crazy. Let me talk about this agent first. So this agent has access to a couple tools. These tools are, it starts with a LinkedIn search. So this goes to Google, does a search for people and companies on LinkedIn, and then it does a LinkedIn person query with the LinkedIn API. And so it can actually pull LinkedIn profile information for a specific individual, and it can do the same thing for a company. So if I was to try and break into a company, usually what I would look for is who's the CEO of this company, or who is the like the lead developer, who has keys to the kingdom, essentially.
CFO. Right? Yeah, exactly.
CFO, exactly. So the multi-hop question that I'm going to add is, who is the developer that works at the company that Gavin Klondike works at? So to answer this question, what company do I work for? And then who is the developer at that company? So we see a multi-hop question. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to hit go, and we'll see this thing kind of churn and burn for a little bit. It doesn't take too long, but we see that it goes through the LinkedIn profile search. And once these complete, I can kind of click on them and show it's looking for Gavin Klondike. It's doing a query against LinkedIn itself. Oops. So it's just a Google query site, linkedin.com, and then it has the query term, pulls a bunch of information. It does a scrape now that it has my LinkedIn profile link. And so it pulls a whole bunch of information about me. And then from there, it gets an idea of what company I work for. So it can pull LinkedIn profile information for GlitchSecure, which is the company that I represent. And then it goes back and does another query for who's the developer at GlitchSecure, and it pulls information. And sometimes it'll do another scrape of that person, but here's where we get the answer to that multi-hop question. It was actually Noah who works at GlitchSecure as the full stack PHP developer. So that's how you can put all of this stuff together in a practical way, and you can start doing OSINT queries.
And you could see that, Gavin, going into the next one of, tell me what Noah's top favorite things are based on looking for similar profiles under Noah Curo on Facebook. Help me find the best target to approach as what we think we could convince them to do something under coercion. You could actually have a mice agent that looks at, is it money? Is it ideology? Is it coercion? Is it ego? Like which one do I have to use on this human? I mean, I don't want to be that macabre, but you could imagine stringing these types of results through lots and lots of these thought processes to drive through, like, what kind of infrastructure are they affiliated with? See what kind of GitHub repos they've worked with and which types of things. Find any common flaws in their current GitHub repo, like just the things. Continue to go on and on. And even if you got, let's say, a near bell curve accuracy rate most of the time, the speed at which that gets your attention on and the ability to validate those outputs in a way that you can use them from an OSINT perspective, I still think is worth it. I've done the manual OSINT. It takes forever to go through so much of that. What was funny is, if you saw in that first response, it easily parsed through the fact that you work several places. It was pretty quick to say, yeah, you have this other YouTube channel you started, but it didn't target that. It targeted the logical one of GlitchSecure, which is interesting to me. I mean, and maybe I'm wrong on that data point, but it did seem that it was able to parse through those other employment opportunities that came back in that first response to say, that's a glitch. So if we got bell curve accurate enough to get down to those things and get Noah, and Noah's right 85% of the time, I might unfortunately 15% of the time attack some numpty, but most of the time I'm attacked in the right person, right? And so it's like, I think the value of this, and this is what I wanted to show in this show, is the vectors at which this reduces the effort required once the effort's been put in. Right, Gavin? Like, how many hours would you say,
exactly,
once you've put in 5 hours making something, do you expect to get back out of it in your day-to-day use of this right now in your mind?
Well, and especially
5x?
as you're doing things that are repeatable, you can honestly get that up to 10x. And I'm not being hyperbolic, right? If I have something like a set of tasks that require some research, right? So one of the examples that I have is also Archive. Archive is where a lot of AI research lives today. And so I can just start asking questions about that AI research. And then I have questions about that question. And then I have questions about more of the answers that it gets. And so now I can just go down this whole rabbit hole. And instead of me having to manually read all of these academic, dry articles by myself, I can just have the AI do it. And then I can have a whole conversation with that. So I'm extracting more information in a shorter amount of time while saving me, the cognitive overload that would normally take.
You know what? It's like Nintendo Power, right? Like, because you could go read through and figure it out and try all these different things, but you can get a book and it just gives you the next code. It's up, down, left, right, right. Like, you could play through all those sequences. But genuinely, it's like what snapped for me there was going through the reading of multiple things to get to that next nugget that tells you have to go to this next pivot. That time can be immense sometimes. And if something can help me jump that logic curve to get that time to the next pivot down, big time. All right, Gavin, as usual, we always have 10 times more to show. Maybe that's another one of those tongue-in-cheek responses there than what we have here, and time to do it. So thank you so much for being here. And I don't know what the next steps are here. Dom, we want to close this thing out?
I think Matt needs to do the play of the day.
Oh, did I just like pass the ball back to myself? Let's do it. Play of the day. All right. If you're not already looking at how you can find ways to use agentic approaches in your life, you're going to be rapidly behind, because the people that are already doing that are already using that to do exactly like Gavin said, make more with their day, become more efficient, more effective, learn more, be able to jump through more, find things that interest you more, that will help you more. I think it's interesting that so many people don't go down this model of using things like Copilot and other agentic things that we can do because of all the flaws. Yeah, lots of flaws, but if I can generate really accurate answers 10 times faster and more predictable, even with their errors, I'm making more time for me. And that's important. If you're not using agents, you're way behind. Get on with it. Go use Make, go use Copilot, go use N8N. Go learn about it. Go immerse yourself. And follow Gavin. That's the last piece I'll close with. See y'all later.
Game over.
All right, do follow Gavin. He's got great content. And do try out agents, any agents you're interested in trying. But think about something that you have to do every day that you could get done a little faster and see an ROI on. That's our show for the week. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all that jazz. We will see you next week. Same time, same place.